Welcome to the Beyond the Bucket Show, a podcast centered around optimizing all life's buckets. We all have buckets we are balancing: coaching, entrepreneurial ventures, family, passion projects, and health. Let's all take this journey together and become bucket fillers. And here's your host, Chris McSwain.
Ron Campton is the head women's basketball coach at Mesa Westwood High School in Mesa, Arizona. In his first 2 seasons as head coach, he led the team to a 45-12 overall record. Last season, his team won the 6A East Regional Championship. They also reached the Elite Eight for the very first time in school history, and he was in the running for Arizona Coach of the Year. During our conversation, we discuss how he started to change the culture. We also touch on the challenges that he faces to this day and how he plans to keep the program going in the right direction. We also get some tech talk, talking some of the technical parts of the basketball game, from fundamentals of shooting, system of play, and different drills you can do to keep your team progressing. Enjoy. Coach Ron Campton, happy to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to go ahead and talk basketball all the time and get the word out about our program a little bit and have a hopefully great discussion on the game right now.
Definitely. I really love talking to coaches that have just recently taken over programs. I did it about 8 years ago and I had my process. So it's really interesting to see how everybody else does it, especially when you have some success early. In this past year, I think you guys went 23-5, won the 6A East Valley regional title. And then in 2 years, you guys are 45-12. Over that span. So I want you to give me a little bit of background on how you had so much success so early.
So first we had a group of freshmen come in 4 years ago that had played some solid club ball before. And a couple of them bounced straight up to varsity. So that helped kind of insulate our program a little bit. And at that time, I was the freshman coach working skill development and just training stuff with the girls year round going into the season. It was just a process. That group of freshmen took a couple lumps the first year they were there, and the second year they were there, and then kind of, really turned things around. Play style was a big thing that kind of changed from, year 3 for me as a freshman coach to year 1 as a varsity coach.
Right.
And I think just trying to put the girls in the best positions to be successful and limit mistakes was a big step forward to go ahead and make sure that we were playing to the peak of our ability. And we've got a lot of small, quick, athletic, fast girls that can shoot, which makes us deadly 1 through 5. And then even going into our bench, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the, coming on the floor.
Yeah.
When you're small, you got to be able to shoot. So that was kind of a big thing for us was pressing that need of, hey, we can be down 10, 12 points early and shoot our way back into the game in the next 3 minutes of time. And all of a sudden we're up 2 or 4 and the, tide's broken and we're really, gas pedal down right there at that point. So just getting them used to going full speed all the time, not really taking much of a break during the games, not really doing slow pace, just get up the floor, shoot the ball, hunt for shots, follow real quick, and then just be aggressive on defense. We're always outsized, but it's, testament to our girls that they're able to go ahead and compete with some of the teams that have 5'10", 5'11", 6'1", 6'3", and even, 6'6", like we had in our last postseason game past year. So just some of the little things that have helped turn us and make us successful in the first 2 years that I've been here.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate that. And especially the style of play, trying to implement that as soon as you can, as soon as you got there, and just really focusing on the skill development and what it takes and how you guys actually want to play. And I know we're definitely going to get into that during this conversation. I do want to know exactly, what were your first things that you started to do to implement in the program once you got the job? For me, it was, coming into a program, and I didn't really want to put them down for what they had been doing in the past. We were just going to go a different direction because the previous coach, he was a good person, and I knew him personally, as well as the kids, they were all invested into that coach and that program. And my situation, I was their third coach in 4 years. And so it was much different for these kids, and trusting somebody like me just coming in and saying, hey, we're going to change everything. My approach was more like, hey, we appreciate what you've been doing, and now we're going to try to move on into a different direction and take what you've learned and then, try to multiply or add to that. Tell me what you did.
So my approach coming in, we had a good foundation set up. And a couple of impact girls that were coming in as freshmen that I knew were going to be able to make the jump right away and compete at the varsity level. It was more than anything just getting them ready to play the way they've always played. So the population at Westwood for the girls basketball program, at least, we're about 80 to 85% Native American throughout the program.
Wow.
If you're familiar, with Arizona girls basketball, the North region in 3A is every Native team, Page, Ganado, all those teams are in there.
Okay.
And there's a style of basketball called res ball, where it's just, you get up and down the floor, you push pace, you're not stopping for anything.
Yep.
Bucket goes through for the other team, and before they know it, you're already at half court ready to go ahead and score on the other end.
Yeah.
So going ahead and getting the girls used to playing a style of ball that they'd played their entire lives for the most part was step one. And I think that helped ease them mentally and put them in a comfort zone that they might not have been in before.
And the res ball is more of a high tempo type of trapping defense and more something you would see like on the playground, right?
Similar to that, yeah.
Right.
And it plays to our strength because we've got girls that can run all day long. So I could probably go with 7 girls if I needed to, and they could just play the entire game pressing and running and not really have any issues.
I love that.
But it was more me as a coach personally. I'm more hands-off in games, or I try to be, and limit the impact that I have to the things that coaches usually can control. Timeouts, making sure that we're making subs when we need to, and noticing when girls get tired, trying to make sure we pinpoint matchups that we see when there's, a girl on the floor that we know can't guard one of our players, something like that. I don't like to be the coach that's calling out a play every time down the floor, have a guard looking at me on the sideline to see what, I want them to do. I want them playing, in the moment, because the more they trust themselves, the less they have to rely on me. So for them, it was building up that trust level in themselves, making sure that they knew how to play the game during off-season trainings and skills development sessions and things like that, and then cutting them loose in games and then fixing things as we went along. And I think that was the first really big step towards getting them playing the way I wanted to see them play, was me as a coach kind of giving them a little bit of flexibility and giving them that leash that they might not have had before, and going ahead and letting them run with it, and then fixing things as we saw them develop and go along. So it was a little bit of a process getting them used to playing that way, because we'd still have moments where they'd look over to me and expect me to call some magic play or, do something to bail them out. And for the most part, we've been through this, what we want to do. We've worked on these situations in practice before. We've worked on what we want to, attack when we've got a 5 out or a 41, or when we're going, traditional 3 out, 2 in, whatever the situation may be, what to expect. So just trust your gut and try and make something happen. So it gives them a little bit more freedom. And as a coach, it's tough giving up freedom some of the time, but it's good seeing them take the ball and run with it when they're out there on the floor.
Right. I think we talked about it in our pre-call, the game's approach to coaching, where it's like, you practice all these situations, but you want to give them flexibility to be who they are and basically learn how to play the game. And I think that's very important. So very good points. Now, also trying to build your culture. I know you used to be a manager at Arizona State. Was that on the men's or the women's side?
That was actually for baseball.
Okay. Gotcha. Baseball.
So that was for the ASU baseball team.
Yeah. And how did that experience being at the collegiate level help you in your role now?
So it was an eye opener. I had a mutual friend of at the time, Coach Pat Murphy, set me up with a meeting, and from there it was talking and communicating and, okay, what can I do to help? And it was doing video work on game days and trying to break down film stuff. And then it was coming on board full time as a manager, which meant dealing with, everything from recruits to equipment stuff to on-field assistance wherever needed, or, whatever the coaches needed done, scouting reports on opposing teams. Biggest thing was getting being able to see how a major D1 program. I mean, at the time, ASU baseball, we made 2 Pac-10 championship runs or 2 Pac-10 titles in 3 years, and went to the College World Series, or 3 years out of 3 years, and then went to the College World Series in 2 years too.
Wow.
So it was cool seeing the highest level of college baseball and seeing how the guys, reacted. And it was kind of a good, insightful experience looking back on that and then comparing it to, high school basketball, even, where you get to see how, players develop, you get to see how players interact with each other. You can kind of take away lessons that worked on, the college baseball side and try and implement them with the, high school girls basketball side. And not everything works because not everything's applicable to the type of athlete and the person that you're dealing with, but it gives you more of a framework coming in where you've been around college athletics and you know what to expect. But it was eye-opening. It was a great experience, one of the best experiences of my life, being able to go ahead and take part in those road trips and do all that stuff with the college team. But it definitely helped lay the foundation for me as a coach. And I talk about my experiences there all the time with certain players that I saw come through and how coach reacted to them. And some of the things that he did, I try and implement some of the same strategies that I saw him do as a motivator and work on that stuff with the girls. So it's helpful. Like I said, it gives you that framework to go ahead and try some new stuff that you've seen be successful at the highest level of college athletics.
One of my mentors is a former Division I baseball coach, and just hearing the day-to-day that they go through, because baseball and basketball is so different, but the relationships that you're building with your players are very, very important. And as a baseball coach, you were constantly in relation with the players. Basketball is always been more transactional, in my opinion, where it's like you go out there and you do what we're asking you to do, whatnot, offense, defense, and you're going to play the way you want to play. But the baseball coaches, they have so much extra time, in between pitches, in between innings. Like basketball is a fast-paced movement, and you can always communicate and talk. So I've found a lot of value in speaking to baseball coaches who are my friends, or one of my mentors is, like I said, one of the all-time best baseball coaches in our area. So
Yeah.
I love those parallels. Tell me about some of the roadblocks that you have had early on. It's 2 years into your reign as the head coach in a program. So what have been some of the roadblocks that have occurred on the way?
So we had a minor one pop up year 1 to year 2 where we had a switch in athletic directors. And as the head coach, one of the big things is always, how's this going to affect my standing as the coach? Is the coach going to back, what we're trying to do and how we play the game and all that sort of stuff on the floor?
Right.
And that was actually a pretty minor hurdle. Expectation wise coming in, you're like, okay, I don't know which AD we're going to get. I don't know who's going to be, the person making the decisions anymore. The last AD thought it was the right idea to have me here. I don't know if this AD will want to go ahead and see something similar.
Sure.
Thankfully our AD, we came in and had some great discussions initially, and he'd actually been up Northern Arizona for a couple of years before that. So he was very familiar with that style of basketball to begin with. So when he got to Westwood, that was one of the first things he talked about was how he's like, yeah, I've seen this, for years and it can definitely be effective. So just keep doing what you're doing. So that was kind of a good little jumping over of the small roadblock that popped up.
Right.
Culture is a constant one, trying to go ahead and get all the girls on the same page all the time, make sure everybody's in it together. It's really tough, and it's a constant growing experience. I feel like for a lot of the athletes,
Right.
The culture just of high school basketball to begin with is the girls that you see the most of all the time are the top 0.01% in the nation, where they're the ones getting all the publicity on Instagram, or they're the ones doing hey, I've got my top 20 narrowed down to my top 10 videos and stuff like that. They're the ones getting the notoriety and the publicity and everything like that.
Right.
And I think it's natural for high school athletes to want to go ahead and have that same experience. And I think it's kind of built into athletes in general, where it becomes more individualized in their search of a college scholarship or an opportunity to play at the next level. And when it becomes individualized, it's easier to throw the team concept aside and focus on you as an individual.
Right.
So I think that's a constant barrier to break down, is being able to constantly reinforce that team concept, even when players are chasing individual goals for themselves after they're done with our program. at the next level.
Right.
And I don't know if there's ever really a right answer for it. Teams can always say, yeah, we're all bought in. Everybody's on, 2 feet in the circle, 100%. And it honestly, I don't ever feel like that's always the case. It's difficult to get 10 to 12 different personalities all pulling in the exact same direction
No doubt.
2.5 months out of the year.
Right.
So I think that's a constant battle. And me personally as a coach, I try and take as much of an individualized approach to each of our athletes as I can. So knowing that, one girl might not be a college prospect, but 2 or 3 other girls might be college prospects. Then the discussions between the players becomes, okay, what's the plan after you get done? What do you want to do? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go ahead and work in a trade school? Do you want to go ahead and go straight into the workforce? Do you have opportunities that are already presented to you? But making sure we keep it as individualized as we can. I'm not a fan of the blanket approach where it's, hey, this is going to be the uniform, set of things that are successful for you as an athlete, because I tell the girls all the time, whether it's their shot, whether it's them as a person in school, they're all different. Everything about each girl is slightly different. Nobody's going to have the same mechanics on their shot, the same, body mechanics that work for them. No girl's going to react the same way in the classroom as they would to teacher A and teacher B. So trying to go ahead and fight that constant roadblock is something that's always there, but it's one of those like constant puzzles that you're always trying to solve. Like it just doesn't go away. But if you don't think about it, it comes back to bite you. If you constantly are, working on it, I feel like that's the best approach, where you're constantly trying to improve culture, get the girls in, making sure that they, have their opportunities down the road. But that's, I think, the biggest roadblock, is making sure the culture of the program is always stable. And, for that, it's trying to get input from our senior leaders and figure out what makes them tick, as well as the other girls. And I search out feedback from my players all the time, where, hey, what do you think will be successful? What's one thing that you could see, we could do as a team building activity? Try and get the feedback so that the players too feel like it's not just, oh, coach is on as, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to make ourselves a better team. This way they actually feel like they're part of being a better team, and it gives them that, bought in concept to begin with when we try the activities that they suggest. So I think that's the big roadblock that we've experienced up to this point.
2 of the points that I really like from what you just said. One was basically what Pat Riley talked about, the disease of me, or the disease of more. Everybody is like more. If I got an offer, I want to get 5 more offers. But if you start investing more into the team and the rest of the team unit, the team as a unit, and the culture, you're going to see that all those things start coming back to you more and more and more. So you don't really have to go out and seek that if you put that energy into what the team and the group is trying to accomplish. The second one, that culture piece that it's a nonstop thing. It is an everyday thing, and the longer you do it, hopefully it gets easier, because you have team leaders that know the expectations, and then you as the head coach, you're thinking about what's the next step to get you to that next level and whatnot. So really appreciate those 2 things, and they couldn't be more profound for anybody running a program or head of basketball, of a basketball team. So tell me a little bit more about the system. How did you get them to buy into it? You mentioned earlier that just do what they're doing, but at a little bit higher level. Was there any resistance early on with regard to the system, or everybody kind of just bought in as soon as you got there?
There wasn't a whole lot of resistance. Like I said, we have a certain type of player for the most part. And I think they all relish knowing, a lot of them have had experience with me as a coach in the past, so they knew me and were familiar with me. So it wasn't like, we've got to adjust to some totally different person that we've never met before. But them knowing that I trusted them to make decisions in games, I feel like helps initially. I get on them when they make mistakes, but it's to let them know, hey, you need to not make that mistake again. Like, that's something that we can't have. But them knowing that, okay, you've got the rope to go ahead and make some mistakes on the floor, and fix them once you've made them, and make sure that you're like actually thinking about it and providing value after you make those first couple of mistakes.
And when you make the corrections, what does that conversation look like?
So In game, we'll usually give it a little bit of leeway. I'll talk to the player on the court during a free throw or, time when we have a couple of seconds so that we kind of get the point across. Hey, we're looking to do X, Y, and Z. Make sure you're doing this.
Uh-huh.
If it becomes a bigger pressing issue and we'll rotate them out, then it'll be okay. My assistants will go ahead and take care of game management for a couple of minutes, and I'll go down to the end of the bench with them and talk to them. Hey, remember, we talked about this. We want to work on this. This is what we're trying to see. More of a one-on-one setting away from the action, so they're not focused on trying to go ahead and worry about game stuff and then worry about what coach is saying too. So just try and put them in situations where they're not overloaded, especially in games, because if you're overloaded in games, it usually doesn't work well.
Sure.
So try and give them that opportunity to fix it in game. And then, after each game, when we're breaking down film or going through and trying to remember what didn't work, what wasn't effective, we'll just build it into our practice plan for the next couple of days. Hey, we had issues with this, so we're going to go ahead and spend a couple of 10-minute blocks covering that concept again to make sure we reinforce what we were talking about and hopefully take those issues out of the equation for our next game. And it's just a revolving door. Like we'll revisit issues, a couple of times throughout the season. We'll see them go away for 2-3 games, and then it'll pop back up randomly. Free throw shooting is a big one. We'll have one game where everyone's just uncharacteristically off, so we'll put a couple more blocks of free throw shooting into our practice schedule and make sure we're really hammering that. Passes get lazy, so we'll make sure we go ahead and spend some time really hit outside shoulder on passes from top to the wing, go ahead and make sure we hit our cutters out in front, things like that. Make sure we're hitting people in transition to lead them to the basket, not, throw behind them. It picks up, and then you have your ebbs and flows where all of a sudden one game, everybody just can't hit the broadside of a barn with their pass, and you just got to revisit it. So we try and break it down as much as possible where we can revisit that stuff in future practices and then take them out of the big moments and talk to them about it on the court during game settings.
Right. In the system, what are some of the non-negotiables and then some of the things that you're not so worried about? So if you're playing so fast, your turnovers are probably going to be a little bit higher than a team that plays really slow. So is that something that you are concerned about? If you have a little bit more turnovers, but you're creating the pace of play that you want to get more shot opportunities. If you get in a regular game 50 possessions, but the games that you're trying to play, you want them in 100 possessions, I'm sure, 80 plus at least. Tell me what that looks like for your program.
So we have rules that I'll try and, drive home to the girls. Like we want to try and hit between 75 and 80 possessions a game. That's for our style of basketball. That's usually the number where we can look back on wins and losses and see, okay, we got a, X number of shots this game, or we had X number of offensive possessions where that resulted in a shot.
Do you guys have a shot clock in Arizona?
No shot clock, but we play like we have a 15-second shot clock a lot of the
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
So it's trying to make sure they understand, being undersized, being small, but being quick, it's advantageous for us to get a shot off early before the defense is set rather than stopped in a half court set where we don't have a chance after the defenders have locked on and they're starting to box us out.
Right.
So that's one of the things is try and hit 75, 80, possessions or shots in a game to make sure we get them off quick. Funny enough, our turnover rate went down from 3 years ago to the last 2 years because one of the issues we had 3 years ago was we passed the ball around too much trying to hunt.
There you go.
Look. And, you could see past 5, 6, and 7, steal percentage went up for the other team because we were going ahead and trying to make too many passes or getting too cute with our passes.
Right. No, I love that because the more passes that you have, the higher probability that you're going to have a turnover. So if you shoot the basketball when it's in rhythm and in range, then you got to take that. But if you're turning those shots down, well, that next pass could lead to a turnover. So I love that you made that adjustment from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the big things too, is getting them to understand, we could make 6 or 7 passes and try and, hit this back cut that we're trying to find, or we could pull the first wide open 3 before the defender closes out and then work for an offensive rebound. So one of the other ones is we want to go ahead and try and rebound 20% of our misses. which only happens if we shoot early. So those two are kind of directly, related. We only hit that 20% number if we're taking early shots as we get down the floor before the defense can get set. So trying to make sure we push tempo, get a ton of shots up in a game. And like I said, we can see, from year 1 and year 2 to previous years, what the amount of, or what our record is in games where, we have 75 shots as a baseline to 60 shots as a baseline to 50 or, fewer. And it's, 7-0, 7-1 down to, over 500 to, 2-4 at, 50 shots or less a game. So you can see where the differences are in the number of shots that we take. And then it was trying to find, okay, what limits us from taking a large number of shots? Well, we're not getting, the ball down the floor. We're turning it over too much. We're turning it over in the backcourt when we're getting pressured. So, all of it relates to us playing quick and fast. If we play fast, balls inbounded before the defense can set up in their press, that works to our favor because now they can't press us. That eliminates an avenue for turnovers that we might have made 2 years ago. If we're passing the ball around 5 or 6 times in a half court set, that increases the likelihood that we're going to have a steal or a turnover. So we need to just eliminate that and take shots after 1 or 2 passes to make sure we're getting a shot up quick. So it was everything, like all of our negotiables were geared towards limiting turnovers on the offensive end and then causing turnovers on the defensive end.
Right.
So style of play, pace of play was a big one, making sure we hit that number of shots. And then defensively, it was try and just be chaotic enough to confuse some teams. And, the team's going to really slam it down into a 6-3 post. We're going to struggle, but I'd rather have a 6-3 post take 25 shots a game than leave a, 35, 40% 3-point shooter wide open at the 3-point line. So we'll let them have the contested 2 if it means we're not giving up the open threes. But just playing a little bit chaotic on the defensive end to go ahead and throw things off for the teams that we're playing.
Gotcha. One of the things I want to retouch on is, so you want to basically get 40% of the offensive rebound opportunities. If you got, because if I shoot the basketball, I'm either going to make or miss. So a 50% chance for that the ball goes in, regardless if I'm a great shooter or a bad shooter. And from there, you're trying to get 40% of those misses, correct?
So 20%'s the number that we always set in the game.
Okay.
And then off of those 20% that we would get would be, hey, we're trying to rebound 20% of those misses as well if we, miss some shots on the follow. But, percentage-wise, I can't really think about what it would be at this point. But 20%'s the kind of baseline number that we always set before each game is we want 20 misses to be offensive rebound.
So if you're shooting 10, you want to get 2. If you miss 10, you're trying to get 2 of those.
Yeah.
And then do you chart the conversion rate on those 2 offensive rebounds per 10 shots?
So we use a NFHS Pixelot camera system. So we've got all that data stored through their sending to Huddle so we can break down games and things like that. And also have our younger girls chart the entire game while we're playing as a varsity program.
Yep.
So our freshmen and JV girls will go ahead and keep track of makes, misses, made threes, free throws made, all that sort of stuff in addition to the book. Keeps them engaged on the game and kind of gets them seeing what's most important to us as a program at a young age so they can go ahead and stay involved and still feel like they're contributing to the varsity program at being a freshman or a sophomore.
Definitely gets that program involvement and that breeds the culture that we talked about earlier. Tell me a little bit about practice. What does practice look like for you guys? You're trying to play this fast-paced style. You want to shoot a lot. I'm assuming you want layup or 3 most of the time.
Yeah, very, very little focus on mid-range. It's not that – so very little focus on mid-range in games because that is kind of the method where we either want to lay up off of the drive or we want to go ahead and kick out 3 off of 1 or 2 passes or pull up 3 in transition if it works. So practices are typically broken down into 5 to 10 minute blocks depending on the topic that we're covering. We cover every single day. Transition work we cover every single day, making those passes and those outlets. We cover a couple of 10-minute shooting blocks, whether it's a transition shooting drill that the girls work on pulling up in transition, or if it's drive and kick into an open shot. and then we'll go small-sided games for some of it. But it's typically, bang, 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 move everything along. We go from one block to the next. I tell the girls all the time, I'm not going to give you like set water breaks all the time. So if you need water, just run out, jump back in the drill after you've gotten water, and then we're off to the next one. As the season goes on, practices slow down a little bit because, being smaller and less heavy than a lot of the players that we play against, the girls tend to get banged up, and we need to go ahead and readjust things as we, move forward. So there's a little bit more time for breaks and things like that to make sure everyone stays healthy.
Right.
But initial training sessions, getting ready to start the season and all that stuff, practices, there's pretty much no let up for, 90 to 120 minutes as we go through.
Nice. Yeah, we don't get water breaks either. We will just have them put their hydro flask on the sideline or baseline. Anytime they need to get water, go ahead and get it. But if we've got 2 hours of practice, then we're going to be practicing for 2 hours. One of the other things I think I mentioned to you in our prep call was that we don't stretch either. So not that they don't stretch, they have to stretch, but they're going to be stretched out. If they need tape or bracing or anything like that, they've got to have that and be ready to go. So what we'll do is we will start doing habits of movement for that duration that we would normally stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're working on jump stops, we're going to work on jump stops or pivoting or things that we really don't work on a whole lot, but we expect them to do a lot. We want to utilize all that time. So, however many practices we usually have about 70 practices a year, and you basically add that 10 minutes in there. It's just, it just reinforces the things that you want to do. We'll even take charges during that time, or work on our defensive stunning and stances, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
I love the fast pace. I think it's the way that we need to teach the game now, this stop and just wait. A lot of times they just need to figure it out. They have to figure it out on the fly. So how much of the small sided games are you doing in practice? You had mentioned that.
So usually 2 or 3 blocks a day are geared towards either team games, whether we're doing shooting competitions or whatever that is, or actual, 2v2, 3-versus-3 work, where we're working a concept, whether it's like a triangle on one half, one side of the floor, where it's, hey, this is a 3-man game from this side. We'll teach this movement, and then we'll add a defense in so you guys can go ahead and see it live with the defense, whether it's strict pick and roll work with our we don't have a big, but if it's pick and roll work with any of our players, and our guards will go ahead and work pick and roll, pick and pop, stuff like that live, so we can get used to seeing those reads to what the defenders are going to do in a live situation. And then we'll just go ahead and we'll do build up drills, whether it's we have every coach calls it something different at this point, but it's the traditional, free throw into 2-on-1 coming back into 3-on-2 going back down until you're playing 5v5 going down the floor.
Right.
We have a continuous drill that we run where you're constantly jumping into new people and playing 3v3 up and down the floor. The 4-versus-4 full court where you're going team on each end and a team in the middle trying to stop. And then if you get a stop, you're running down the other side of the floor playing offense. You get a score, you run back down and play offense against the other side. So, there's no shortage of things that you have in the arsenal. There's binders I've got binders sitting at home, of plays and drills and things that you can work on. But it's trying to keep them active, trying to get them thinking. And I think that's the biggest thing, like you said, get them functioning where they can do it without having to rely on us.
Right.
Like they shouldn't have to look to me for, okay, well, how do we break down this? We've got someone at the post and someone wide. It's like, we've worked on 3-man game before. This. Go ahead and work dribble handoff around the outside, work, pick and roll with the shooter in the corner, work stuff that we've worked on, and go ahead and implement it into a game situation. Getting them ready and just playing, practicing sort of at game speeds with the small-sided games is a big help. And it's something that I really like. At that point, it's just where we at in the season where we can, try and manage workload and pain management that the girls might be feeling after games and things like that.
Well, I'm going to penetrate and kick here to talk a little bit about the outside shot. I know you guys are one of the better teams in Arizona shooting threes. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy on shooting. Are you a hop? Are you a 1-2? Somewhere in between?
Yeah, so somewhere in between, I think would be the best way to put it. So I'm a big believer that one uniform shooting style doesn't work for every player, just because every body is different. All the girls, they're a little bit wider, shoulders are a little bit more stiff. They don't have the flexion in their wrists that other girls might, so they can't snap the ball the way others do. I mean, there's thousands of different variables, it seems like, to cause slightly different shots. And I mean, you look at Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, all of them shoot the ball different. Everything from base mechanics up to release, like it's slightly different in all those aspects. There's some, like you said, non-negotiables for their shooting. We want them to go ahead and have a decent base setup, not too wide for their frame. We want them to go ahead and make sure that they're releasing the ball somewhere from not outside their frame, but somewhere around shoulder level. Have the ball get to the shooting window somewhere in their shoulder level. Ball somewhere around here. No one obviously starting it behind their head or anything. Just little things like that to make them a little bit more consistent. And then from there, it's them shooting enough to be consistent with their shot, and getting comfortable with something that is technically sound, but not uniform across everybody. So we've tried, getting every girl to shoot off the hop, and some of them just cannot grasp the concept no matter how many drills we've done on it. Very difficult. So we'll go through hop shooting with all of them. We'll teach them how to go ahead and come off the hop and what situations they might use that for. And then we'll go ahead and work 1-2 step into their shot off of a left, right, and a right, left, because we do have a few lefties in our program. And, I know there's some coaches that religiously teach, hop shooting. And I've had conversations with a few of them, and I do not doubt their reasoning one bit. It's just firsthand seeing, our girls, some of them struggle with it. At that point, it's okay. Do we continue to, beat our head against this wall where they can't seem to grasp the concept no matter how much we break it down? And then it's early, do we implement it? Because, some of those programs, they've had their kids since second grade, and it's easier to teach a second grade kid to do hop shooting and continue to do that the rest of their life than it is to break down a ninth grade kid that we've never worked with and build them back up as a hop shooter. So we try and work a little bit on everything so they get used to that 1-2 step and that the hop as well. So they're able to go ahead and adapt to any situation that might be present. So it's a little of column A, a little of column B.
Yeah, I would agree with you. One of my best shooters of all, she leads the WCL in threes made in a game and for a season. And she was a 1-2 type of shooter. And she was just an excellent shooter. I mean, she made 100 threes during the league season that year. And the single game lead, she had 10 threes. Our team made 16, but it was all 1-2, catch 1-2 and up, and the previous year, a lot of the coaches in our area really like the hop, and I actually like the hop. But I've come to a realization, kind of like yourself, is some people are going to be different. So we teach them both ways, and we want them to do what's comfortable, because at the end of the day, we just want them to make the shot. You know? So if we're just giving them the opportunities to be successful, okay, here's how it looks on the 1-2. Here's how it comes down if you're coming down on an inside curl, inside shoulder, inside pivot. Here's how you do it off the hop. I just teach it both ways, and then you choose whichever one you want. I think that's been the best approach for our program, and it seems like it's the same for you. But as long as they're consistent, but I do think great shooters can do both. Klay, Steph, they can do both. They can go 1-2, they can go hop whenever needed. Sometimes they'll dip, sometimes they'll just catch and get it up. Like, once you get their muscle memory and their repetitions in, and it takes a lot of repetitions for you to get really comfortable at shooting, then you can do it all. And high level shooters, Tarasi's one of them. Deladon, they can go off 1 foot, they can go off of 2 feet. It really doesn't matter at that point, because they're so dialed into how their body mechanics are.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing is, getting our girls to understand why they would use each one in what's, certain type of situation, so that they're actually prepared when they get that situation. So they're not trying to hop into a shot that they should just be planting 1 foot, stepping out to receive the pass, and then coming back set before they go up. Just getting them used to all the different, types of variables that they could experience as they're receiving the ball, getting ready for a shot. One thing that we found with our players, and this might not be with everybody, if a pass isn't directly on target and you're trying to hop into the shot and hop into the pass, you've got to adjust everything, and then you're off balance when you go up for your shot. Whereas you go ahead and, 1-2 step to the side a little bit, or you plant that left foot, step out with your right to receive the pass, and then go up for your shot, you're going to be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more ready to shoot. It's not going to be as technically proficient as hopping into the shot and being ready, but you're still getting a cleaner look and being on balance when you go up for the shot. So I think that's kind of the big thing for us is just getting the girls ready to take any shot in any situation. Just going to require hop shooting, 1-2 step, stepping out off of a right or a left foot to receive the pass, whatever the situation may be. But just getting them as prepared as possible for that action that they're going to see when they're on the floor in a game.
And for those listeners out there that aren't watching the YouTube clips of this, we're talking about it's not a big hop. It's a small,
Yeah.
It's almost like a drop. You're just almost dropping your feet to get that rhythm. It's not, some people, they get really upset because they think you're really hopping. It's not a hop. The ball is in the air, feet are in there, and you're basically dropping down and getting the shot into a smooth rhythm where the ball is continuously moving once you get the shot up. It's not a big hop. And if you are teaching the big hop, you're going to see probably a lot of travelings, calls by the officials, and you're not going to be as efficient. It's really, I think the name could almost be a drop where you're just dropping and it's quick. It's not one of those long drawn out things.
And that was kind of one of the things too. The AIA, our officiating group, went through and talked about that in our pre-meetings, where they were going to be looking for hops after the catch and really highlighting those as calling out that travel, because it is technically a travel, but a lot of times in motion as you're receiving the pass, it becomes, okay, when did they catch it? Were they off the ground? That sort of thing. It's you're looking at it and making a snap decision as an official. So in my mind, when they immediately were like, hey, we're going to be taking a closer eye on this, it kind of hurts having hop shooters in that perspective, that if a ref sees them hopping, whether or not they receive the ball in the air, as they're supposed to, as they hop into their shot, whatever the case may be, they might just see the hop and initially blow a travel because for it. And it kind of goes back to the whole, if it looks weird, they're going to call it, whether it's a Euro step, slow Euro, or whatever the case is. If it looks off, or they're trying to find something that looks like that, they're going to find a way to call it as a travel. So it's tough in that regard, where you've got to have, the wherewithal as a player to know, okay, I didn't travel, the ref called it, I'll just get it next time and I'll make sure I do it. But that's where having that, in your back pocket, okay, I can 1-2 step, I can go ahead and hop, I can do all this stuff. If the ref calls it a travel off the hop, they're probably going to call it all game. Like, that's something that you can't really control. The ref's looking for it. They're not going to change their mind in game. So just make your adjustment as a player based on what the ref's giving you.
Yeah, and I would call it, if you're doing the bunny hop where you're hopping so high that it looks like you're catching it a little bit too late. If you're catching it low, usually they don't really call that. And it's not a travel anyway. I can be jumping in the air like I'm going up for a rebound and catch the basketball and come down, and that's not a travel. And a lot of times the referees, just because maybe I jumped a little bit higher and I catch it in the air and then I put my feet down, they usually call that because, like you said, it looks weird, but it's really not a travel. And I think everybody needs to be educated on that. But for so long, everybody's seen the inside pivot or just a 1-2, and their minds are focused on that. The really good officials know, and there's a lot of them out there, even though sometimes we don't give them enough credit. But so we're going to pivot now off the hop to talk about what's next for you guys. What's next for the program, and how are you going to take those next steps?
So unfortunately, this has thrown kind of a monkey wrench into everything that's going on worldwide. It's thrown a monkey wrench into our ability to go ahead and get on the floor and work and train and stuff like that.
Yep.
So it's going to be kind of a different atmosphere, I feel like, as we get to August, September, hopefully, when we can start doing stuff again in a team setting.
Right.
It's kind of just waiting, counting down the days until we can actually do stuff. So I think the logical next steps were, 3 years ago, we made our first playoff appearance and we got bounced in the first round, or the play-in round. Last year, we made our second playoff appearance and won in the play-in round, and then got bounced in the second round. And then this past year, we ended up getting a first round bye and won in the second round and got bounced in the third round. So I think the logical progression would be to go ahead and try and make it a step further, go to the Final Four, and hopefully make a championship run with the girls that we have coming back. We return 3 of our 4 leading scorers, which is always helpful. We've got a couple of youngsters that stepped up big at the end of last season to play some serious roles. We've got a transfer who was getting her, feet wet this past year, who's pretty much our only size in our program at about 5'10" on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
So something that we usually don't have in a 5'10", 5'11" body as a post. So we've got quite a few pieces coming back. Guard play will still be huge for us, making sure defense will still be huge for us. One of the things that I requested as a coach was I want us to play the best of the best. Personally, like the whole, we've won 45, 48 games, whatever it is in the first 2 years. The record is awesome, but I'd much rather play the best, get whooped on by a couple of really good teams during the season, be a 18, 19 seed in the postseason, knowing that we're severely underrated based on our overall record.
Right.
And then put the talent, to the test as we go ahead and try and make a late postseason run. So trying to request those big challenges as far as Arizona basketball goes. This last year was the first year that we did the Nike TOC out here and participated in that. And we went 2-2, which wasn't bad. We ended up playing Carruthers High School from California, and that was a good solid test and very well coached team. We ended up playing a couple of other California teams that were, really, really solid. So that was a good kind of eye opener for the girls of where they stack up against teams. Carruthers, I think, won the Section 1 or 2 title last year, and they're a solid, program that's got a lot of, good players that they have from second, third grade and on, that they're able to go ahead and coach them up in their area. So that's a good accomplishment for us to go ahead and pull a win out there. But then I think it's just asking for the test of, hey, we want, the big programs in Arizona, the Hamiltons, the Perrys, the Valley Vistas, the Chandlers, the Xavier Preps, any program that's got a winning record and is in the top 10, Chaparral, like throw them on our schedule. Let's go. Like I'm ready to go ahead and see our girls compete against that level of competition. I want our girls to have the confidence knowing they can play against that level of competition. And we hadn't really done that over the past, couple of years. Last year when we got bounced out of the playoffs, we faced a Perry team that's got one girl that's already committed D1, one girl that's got 10 plus offers, I think, at this point. A couple other girls that are on that program that are going to get D1 looks or, D2, D3 looks here in the next year or two.
Right.
And that was a new experience for a lot of our girls, playing high school ball against girls that have that kind of notoriety and have played on that biggest stage already. So I think last year hopefully shook some of the butterflies loose for us. Playing a team like Pinnacle, which is very, very top heavy in talent, was a good test. The girls knowing, hey, we faced a girl that's 6'6" and we battled until the end. Like, it's not going to be a shock for them anymore. Like, I feel like we can go into that game if we match up against Pinnacle again sometime, this next season. Our girls can go into that game not immediately thinking, okay, dang, this girl's 6'6". It's, hey, we've handled this girl before. We can go ahead and do it again. We've gone toe to toe with her. So it kind of gives them that eye-open test of, hey, we've been battle tested against the best teams in the state. We don't have anything to worry about. We just have to play our game. So I think that's kind of the biggest next step, is getting them all mentally prepared enough where they can go toe to toe with the best in the state. They can battle with anybody. Now it's knowing that we can do that and then putting it on the floor day in, day out, every single game that we get the opportunity. And our region is getting very solid. We had 3 of the final 16 teams in just the East Valley region alone. 2 of them in the top 8, with us and Dobson and Mesa made a serious run and battled Pinnacle before we played them as well. And those were some really solid games between us and the East Valley region. So being battle tested in region play, going in, playing those teams twice each year is definitely a hand to postseason pushes as well. So I think when we get back, it's going to be, practice more of what we do on a consistent basis, shoot the ball, pressure on defense, and knock down shots that are important to us, layups, free throws, and catch and shoot threes. Defensively, it's going to be implementing a couple of new schemes that we haven't done in the past to try and keep things fresh and make sure that we're not scoutable. And then mentally trying to get the best, opponents on the schedule that we can to be as battle tested as possible when we get into postseason at the end of the year.
Now, when you guys do get to postseason, are you able to play that same style? Normally, what I've seen anyway in the playoffs, things slow down, and you can't play as fast. Like, has that been an issue with you in the playoffs and playing, and specifically playing against teams that might be better than you or just as talented from an athletic and skill standpoint?
So 2 years ago, we didn't make as many adjustments as we needed to. And I took a lot of the responsibility for that, whether it's not preparing the players as well as I should have as the head coach in our postseason loss to Perry. And Perry was very much that team that matched up with us athletically and talent-wise. They were just bigger and faster and, could do a lot of the things that we did just at a different level. And it wasn't that, they were 10 steps ahead of us. It was that we kind of got shell shocked in the, first half of that game and tried to scrap our way into it the whole second half.
Right.
So I think our style of play benefits us because of who we are and what we can throw out on the floor at any given time with the personnel that we have. And I think it's sticking to that provides us with our best opportunity to go ahead and be successful. Defensively, we shifted a lot more this year than we have in years past is in terms of what we were running on the floor at any given time to kind of cause a little bit more chaos on defense and take teams out of their comfort zone when they're coming down on offense. And I think the biggest help for us offensively is getting other teams to play as fast as we do. So sometimes it does mean sacrificing a couple of early buckets for the other team to get them up and down the floor for 8, 9, 10 consecutive trips. The difference from years past to this year was not digging as big of a hole for ourselves as, we did a couple years ago. So even if, we're going to be at a deficit, trying to minimize that so where it's not a 10 to 14 point deficit, we're only down 4 to 6. And I think that's the big thing, knowing mentally where we're at as a team, for the girls to be able to look up on the scoreboard and see, okay, we've been playing fast for 6 straight minutes. It's going to pay dividends at the end of the game, but it's only a 6-point deficit because we've been hitting our shots on the other end of the floor too. Right. I think that's a big difference than, hey, we've been playing fast for 6-8 minutes and we're down 10 because the other team's using their size to their advantage. And even though we're playing fast, it looks worse on the scoreboard than it actually might be. Right. So we've seen, this year we played our style in each playoff game. Didn't really have any issues. We just didn't hit shots when we needed to in our second playoff game against Pinnacle. But I think that style is what kept us in those games and allowed us to be, a tough team in Xavier in the second round, and then play Pinnacle toe to toe was us playing our game and trying to force them to adapt and play our style of basketball as well.
Right. Now tell me, as we wrap up here, I know you're a guy that's always on the search for knowledge and just more information. Like you mentioned, you've got notebooks of plays and things like that. I'm the same way. I just cleaned out my garage and just have so much information.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people that you reach out to for guidance or information to help better your team and your system, that sort of thing?
So thankfully, when I was a freshman coach, our varsity coach, Coach Z, she was very adamant about free throw shooting. As she left, one of the biggest things that we've taken and done every single day is her free throw shooting routine to make sure we're as good of free throw shooters as possible. So I have to credit her for one of the biggest positive aspects of our game. I mean, we shot 75% all season long as a team this year from the free throw line.
And what does that drill look like?
So it's 8 minutes on the clock. Your team partners up at every basket. Players shoot 3 free throws.
2 players at a basket?
2 players at a basket. Your players shoot to make 3 in a row. If they don't make 3 in a row, they switch. If they do make 3 in a row, they switch. But for every time they make 3 in a row, we add to our total team count. So you make 3 in a row, you call out 1. Somebody else on the other half of the court makes 3 in a row, we're up to 2, and then it just continues to build and build and build.
And what's the consequence, and what number are you guys trying to reach? So
85 was always the target goal, and as we progressed as better shooters over the last 2 years, that number's gone up to 95, 105.
So it started off at 85 and 8.
Yeah.
8 minutes. Okay.
85 was the set goal initially. And sorry, my dog's
It's okay.
a little crazy. As we progressed past that, we would go ahead and, we hit 95 for 3 or 4 straight practices. So we're going to bump our total number. We got to hit 95 now. And we were up at about 100, 105 on a consistent basis with our varsity girls this past year. And I mean, there were even practices and weeks where we would go 110, 115 on a consistent basis.
Right.
So the punishment initially was every number we fall short of that 85, we're doing a down and back for everyone. So if we get 65 on a bad day, they're running, 20 down and backs to go ahead and make up for it. So that's the goal. And like I said, 8 minutes on the clock, and it kind of gives them the opportunity to see where they're at as a team. And you can kind of sense they're down with the last 2 minutes to go, and they need 25, 30 to go ahead and get going. You can sense where the girls are at when they're hitting their free throws. Like, okay, we got to lock in, and the numbers start pouring in towards the end as they're more consistent with the game on the line. And I think that kind of helps them get to that experience point where, down, 3-4 points with 2 minutes left, we got to have these free throws. Up 1-2 points with a minute and a half left, we have to have these free throws. So it puts that pressure on them in practice, and it carries over into a game. So that was one of the best drills that I was able to go ahead and continue to implement from Coach Z. I'm
definitely stealing that one for sure.
Yeah.
But that's something that we could do in our 10 minutes time. We could do that before practice. Do you guys do it before, after, in the middle? Just kind of depends.
We'll typically do that after we've gotten some serious running done in a transition drill. So we'll go transition shooting up and down the floor, get them used to running, and then we'll go straight into free throws after they're tired. So they're shooting their 8 minutes of free throws after they've run, 120, 130 times up and down the floor in the previous 8 minutes.
Sure.
So we try and always shoot free throws tired so that their legs are a little bit wobbly and they can get used to that feeling like they would have it in games after absorbing contact or, being late in a game, whatever the situation may be. This past year, I went up to Clovis West High School and talked to Campbell up there about some of the things that they do, and, tried to just kind of pick his brain about stuff that they work on, whether it was defensive pressure, the shooting drills that they run from the 3-point line as a, high 3-point shooting team themselves. Some of that stuff's directly applicable to what we do as a team. So trying to go ahead and tune up our 3-point shooting. And one of them was, the 99-cent store drill that he runs where you make a 3, you make a shot.
3 points for every shot.
Point. Yeah. You miss 2 in a row. It's a negative point. You're trying to get your number up to 33 or 99, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
From there, you're trying to set, a baseline on time as you go ahead and continue to hit your 33 shots or, more. And we saw the progress from one of our girls who shot 40% from the 3-point line this year. As a senior, she ended up setting 40 to 56 as her pretty much consistent number in that drill, and hitting her 33 within the first 3.5, 4 minutes of that.
And you guys are going all ones for the 5-minute period?
Yep, all ones for the 5-minute period. So they'll go 5 minutes of straight shooting with a partner rebounding, kicking out to them, and they're moving off of every shot. And, it's just trying to find as much useful stuff for the style that we play. And then building, we'll build some drills out around what we try and do. So we've got a post-up series that we run for a team that doesn't have post players really. We'll do 5 minutes of post work where the girls, release from the block, get out to the elbow, face up their man. And then from there it's read and react. Are you going to go ahead and shoot because you've got space? Are you going to pump fake and get the guy off balance and then drive by him? Are you going to go ahead and try and cross over? What are you going to try and do? So it's just stuff that we could see in games, stuff that we do on a pretty consistent basis, and then trying to develop anything we can to assist us in that regard.
Right. Great. We could sit here and do this all day, and I know
all day.
we'll remain in contact because this was awesome. I got my notepad down here, and I'm gonna use a lot of these things, and hopefully you're gonna help other coaches do the same. For coaches that are seekers and learners that want to know other things. This has been great, and that's why we're doing this podcast to help your not just the basketball. We talked a lot of basketball on this one because I think it was pertinent passionate for this conversation, but just in everything that we're doing. Where can everybody follow you and just, follow your success? I know this year is going to be a good year for you.
Yes. So
this quarantine.
We've got let me make sure I get this right. Our Instagram account is usually where I'll post updates and things like that, most commonly. And it's WW Lady Warriors B-Ball.
Okay.
And, funny enough, with everything that's going on, I just kind of threw out feelers this weekend to a bunch of coaches on Twitter through my coach account on there, which is at Coach Ron Campton on Twitter. And we ended up, I just kind of wanted to see, hey, which other coaches in Arizona kind of want to connect on a Zoom call, since we can't do it in person for a conference or anything like that. Let's just hook up on a Zoom call and see, talk about common problems you guys are facing, solutions that you've seen, what's, going on with you guys as coaches right now, what you're doing to stay active with your teams. And, I wasn't really hoping for a lot off of that, as a newish coach, only being, on the varsity scene for the past 2 years. But we ended up having, 15, 20 responses to that here in the last couple of days of coaches that would be interested in doing something like that here in Arizona. And just kind of, being able to connect and communicate and stay engaged with each other. So try and set up that Zoom call sometime this week on Twitter and let everybody know what the plan is. But, I don't think there's one thing I found as coaches, we try and, protect what we know because it makes us unique. And I don't want this coach to have this drill because it makes us really good. So it's selfish in a lot of ways as a coach, because you want to protect your best stuff so other players and, coaches can't use it to beat you down the road. Me personally, like I joke around with other coaches all the time. Like I'll talk to our East Valley coaches and I'm like, hey, how's so-and-so doing? Hey, what's up with this girl? How's she been doing? And like, man, I just want you guys to win, except when you play us. Like you can win 18 games, but you're losing the 2 to us. That's all I care about is beat you when we play you, but everybody else, like you go, 19-1 or 19-2, whatever the case may be. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I try and bring to the table as a coach here in the state is, like, I love when we're successful. Like us being successful validates all the hard work that we put in, and it validates what we're doing as a coaching staff. But I also want to see more notoriety for the girls in Arizona. Like I love seeing the offers come rolling in for the girls in the state. Like I love seeing, us go to out-of-state competitions and tournaments and compete at the highest level and be competitive in, tournaments up in, Centennial and in Nevada against, top competition there. So I think it's really all about at the core for us, it's building out relationships with each other, trying to share as much information as possible so that as a whole, we're successful as a basketball family, not just me in my pocket, we're successful. And if we continue to do the things that we've done, we'll be successful no matter what. But I think the biggest thing is us building these kids to be good people when they leave high school. And a lot of the time that goes kind of counterintuitive to the selfish mentality of, like, we got to do this for us because if other people do what we do, they're going to be as good as us down the road. Right. Trying to share as much information as possible with as many people as we can. I think that's a big goal that I have here in Arizona, and trying to, just be available. So
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for sharing. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is just to share more and get, coaches like yourself that are passionate about the game and just want to better the game, because like you said, we can't hold on to everything that we have. So yeah. I really appreciate, you coming on the show. We're definitely going to stay in contact. Let me know about that Zoom call. I'd love to hop on too if I'm available and free. But let's stay in contact, my friend. And
definitely
anything that we can do to help out your program, let us know. And, I look forward to our communication.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great talk. I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to future conversations.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.